You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
This is the CRM Archaeology Podcast. It's the show where we pull back the veil of cultural resources management archaeology and discuss the issues that everyone is concerned about. Welcome to the podcast. Hello and welcome to the CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 128 for January 17th, 2018. I'm your host, Chris Webster. On today's show, I talked to archaeologist Richie Cruz in the studio about creating your side hustle. He's got some good recent experience with that. So, go check out the APN affiliate page for your side hustle because the CRM Archaeology Podcast starts right now. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. I don't have any of my co-hosts with me today because we're actually trying to record an episode or two to catch up with our recording schedule. So I brought my friend Richie Cruz, who's an archaeologist here in Reno, into the studio at the Reno Collective. How's it going, Richie?
Yeah, not bad. You know.
Yeah. So it's wintertime here in the Great Basin. So supposedly. Yeah, it doesn't seem like winter, but it's winter from a development and archaeology standpoint, because things usually slow down even if there's no snow on the ground. Work just slows down. So, Richie, why don't you first tell everybody, how long have you been working in archaeology? How long have you been working in the Great Basin?
Oh my God. Almost since the beginning, since my very second project in archaeology ever, which was the Ruby Pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's my first introduction to Nevada and Reno and like working outdoors. Well, I mean, obviously all archaeology takes place outdoors, but like working through the winter.
Yeah. Well, and depending on what phase of that project you were on, it could have been anywhere from 2006 or 7 to 9 or 10.
Oh, I was on the last phase.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, and I've worked with Richie on a number of projects, and he's worked for my company on a couple of projects, and and he helps me, and I'm not going to explain this. It's just if you're a long-time listener to the CRM Archaeology Podcast, Richie occasionally helps me find the keys.
Yes. Oh, I was going to mention that.
That's an Easter egg. So I'm done telling that story. Anyway, what we want to talk about today is we just put up on the ArcPodNet Facebook page, and I want to say it's arcpodnet.com/affiliates. Yeah. So you can go to that page. There's only one thing on there right now because it's literally brand new. I've got a friend who's here at the Reno Collective. He actually he trains people in digital marketing, and it's what he did kind of coming up through the system. And he realized that it was a skill that he could actually teach and then convert from actually doing digital marketing to teaching digital marketing. So that's what he does now, and he does that through a series of online courses. Yeah. And one thing we've talked about on the CRM Arc podcast and in other places, and Bill White, who you guys may know as a co-host of this podcast, go to his Succinct Research page, succinctresearch.com, and he's got a blog where he talks about doing your side hustle all the time. He talks about different things like real estate and other stuff, and there's a number of things you can do. But first, before we get to what Richie's doing, let's define what a side hustle is, because, Richie and I ourselves might have different definitions of it slightly. I don't think we do. But just in case, we'll have both of our own takes on it. So, Richie, how, if you're talking to somebody and you say, hey, you should have a side hustle, and they say, what the hell's a side hustle? Like you're talking to an undergrad, at a social event. Do they still do those social things here at UNR at the end of the year? Oh,
you mean the Blasey Bash?
Yeah.
They have to.
Oh, all right.
Although, there probably aren't as many companies showing up since so many have folded.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a job fair sort of thing for undergraduates, isn't it? Yeah. I've only gone to it like once.
Really?
But, yeah. Anyway, so what do you, if you were to tell somebody what a side hustle is, what is your answer to that?
It's what I do in the winter when I'm not, when I don't want to be that field tech who just sits around drinking beer and watching Trailer Park Boys.
Blow through your savings.
Yeah.
Yeah, or hopefully your unemployment.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were talking about that before the show. It's so strange the way some people don't like unemployment.
Yeah, I know. And that's a whole other show, really. But I think just to help you get to your side hustle, I think even if you're opposed to unemployment for whatever reason, whether it's some philosophical or ethical reason, use it to better yourself. you know, in the meantime. And that's what we're talking about.
And I think it's interesting, well, not to get too far off track, but I think it's interesting that's the same people who are usually opposed to unemployment are also the same people who are opposed to side hustles or teaching yourself something during the winter.
Right.
They just want to sit there, blow through their savings, and then be super bitter that they're not getting jobs like at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah. So I think my definition of a side hustle is mostly your definition, but I'm going to expand that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think a side hustle, in some cases, can really take you throughout the year.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to just be over the winter or when you're unemployed or something like that. I think it's something you can manage throughout your entire career if you want to.
Yeah.
And I don't really see it as, you know, I mean, it's a strict definition of this is it's another way to earn money.
Yeah.
It's another way to earn money, pay the bills, and then if you really want to be high level about it, it's another way to keep your brain engaged and to do other things, right? Rather than just sitting around doing nothing. But I think that depending on the side hustle, you know, you can use it to, I mean, so many people, they don't understand how to live in hotel rooms. You know, they get on these projects and they spend months at a time on the road and they're just like, you know, watching TV. They don't get into a routine.
Yes.
You know, well, I try to live wherever I'm at. Yeah. And I try to get back into a routine. I'm working during the day, but in the evening, I'm not living in a hotel room. I'm living in my home. Yeah. Which happens to be a hotel room right now.
Well, it also depends because, you know, if you stay at like those stay bridges, they practically are, they are your apartment.
Yeah. There's something to be said for staying in one of those extended stay type places, you know, because it changes your mindset, makes you think that you're not in a hotel room. They don't even do like cleaning every day at those, do they? It's a little more of a relaxed schedule. Yeah. Yeah. Which I appreciate. I don't even let the maids in my room every day. Maybe every 3 or 4 days if I have to.
It depends because I hate because, you know, like you, I set it up as my home. And when I was editing videos and stuff, I didn't want to put all my computer equipment away.
I know. And I'll never forget one of the early projects I had, where it was actually, I think one of the first ones where I actually had a room with somebody. Yeah. And I was rooming with this guy in Southern Florida. He was a cool guy. And he had this like, garment bag that he had most of his stuff hanging in. Yeah. And he would take his laptop and his, like everything that he had and stuff it down into this garment bag that was hanging in the room there and cover it with clothes and stuff because he was afraid the maids were going to steal it. Every single day he did that. Wow. Yeah. That's a little bit too high a paranoia for me, you know?
Well, it depends also on what you've got in there. Cause all my clothes are in a Pelican case, that giant roller one I can always carry. Yeah. But I do that for 2 reasons. Not necessarily for security, although I do have a giant padlock on it because I can. Mostly because I transport it in my truck in an open bed. Yeah. But also for bed bugs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Cause, you know, it's airtight. So even if they get inside, they're going to die.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's a good point. You know, you never know what the hotel when you first get there, what it's going to be like. So keep your stuff closed up maybe until you figure it out. Yeah. Until you wake up itchy the next morning.
Although, my God, now we're taking it off schedule. But the other day I was going through Amazon and apparently they have little spy cams that are built in the phone charger. So they're a phone charger and a camera. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, that's so awesome for hotel rooms because sometimes you put that do not disturb sign up and they still come inside. Oh, I know plenty of people who have had that happen.
Well, when they know, especially when they know people are working. I've seen maids when I was at a hotel room before, especially here in Nevada, go into a room with the do not disturb sign on because they know the person went to work that day. Yeah. If they've been there for months and they know what their schedule is, they just go in. They don't care. So anyway, you know, I think your side hustle does not necessarily need to be on the side. It can be your next to or adjacent hustle. It's not like occasionally something you do. And you know, the other thing is, before we really start talking about it, let's take away the stigma of doing something other than archaeology with your life as a bad thing.
See, and that's like, I don't understand the stigma at all.
Well, I think it's because people want this to be a career like any other career. Like you go to work 9 to 5. Yeah. You do your thing and then you come home, you watch football, you play with the kids, you do whatever you're going to do, and then you do it all again the next day. Yeah. And it's Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, you try to forget about work. You drink beers, you go fishing, you do whatever you're going to do. I know. Archaeology, unless you're in a position where this is the case, like there are positions where that is the case. That's the kind of job you have. They're usually upper level positions. These people are working in offices. Yeah. Or academic jobs where it's a little more regular because there's a semester to follow and you got your classes and stuff, and you generally don't have classes on the weekends. That's a little more regular. But archaeology field techs, which is who we're talking about right now, You just have to learn right out of the gate that you are not going to have a full-time job for the entire year.
Exactly.
You might, but you're probably not going to.
Well, it also depends, because for the past couple of years, since we were down in El Centro, I was splitting my time between the bookstore that I worked at and being a field tech.
Right.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there was a lot of contraction and stuff like that in the Great Basin last year, so that wasn't quite working, which is probably leads into our show, because that's why I had to do this course. Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing. That's another good point too. With you working at the bookstore, it's a local bookstore here in Reno.
Yeah.
Sometimes your side hustle does not have to be a new skill that you learn. Sometimes it can be just a really flexible employer.
Yeah. And although I did learn a lot of new skills, and I learned, because, obviously, when you're out there surveying and doing your thing, you don't deal with a lot of people. But I really enjoyed talking to people. I learned all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. That's the thing. Not only should you take away the stigma, but sometimes if you find a side hustle, it can be fun. Yeah.
And it's, again, it keeps you engaged, keeps you going, keeps you social. You get to see other people. It's just a good thing. And any job that you have, even if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, you're going to learn a skill that will help you in something else if you want to see it that way. If you want to be bitter and angry about it because you're not doing archaeology, then you're going to be bitter and angry about it and not learn anything.
Exactly. Oh my God. How many people do we see like that on the Facebook forums?
I know. They're just bitter that they're not doing archaeology and they're pissed off about it.
I mean, sometimes I used to be like that when I first got into the industry.
Yeah.
Sort of. I just mostly I just hung out at my favorite bar. Yeah. And just chatted with the bartenders.
Well, that's the issue is, we're in school and we're in college and we're thinking, we're being told constantly, oh, you got to find a job, here's places where you can go look for work and things like that. And we think of job, we think of the traditional style of job that we mentioned already in the show. But, we just need to understand that you're going to have to pay your dues early on until you get to the point where you do have that regular schedule.
Yeah.
But early on, even for the first few years or longer, depending on what you do with your career, there's career field techs out there that have been doing this for 20 years, 20, 30 years that have no steady employment, and they're happy with it because they understand it.
Yeah. Alternatively, they're also you're also competing against those field techs who, you just mentioned their name, Country Bob or something, and oh man, we're going to get him on a crew. Why would we get this, person we've never heard of on a crew?
Right. You've got those superstar field techs that they hit the ground running. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this long enough. They need zero training. Yeah. You're competing against them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's tough.
Yeah, and that's why it's so hard to break in the industry, and that's why you need other employment.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the side hustle a little bit, and what you're doing, Richie. I'll talk. I think we're really going to get into that in the second segment. I think in the end of this segment, I'll maybe talk about my story because it's a little shorter.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, I've talked about what I've done in lots of different ways, but. Basically, I didn't even know what I was doing was really a side hustle until Bill White started really saying that. I'm just always trying to find something else to do, something else to keep myself engaged. Plus, I have the kind of personality that I'm always looking for ways to improve things that I'm doing, whether it's myself or actually just improve the way something is done. So my very first job in archaeology, I think I even mentioned this on the archaeology show that's coming out in, it was on the last episode on field schools. Oh. My very first job in archaeology, because in my field school was in Africa. Yeah. And in Africa, it's done very differently than it is here, right? Yeah. So here in the United States. And so at my very first job, I'm paired up with this guy. It's an ongoing project. I come in the middle of it, and I'm paired up with this guy who's already a meter and a half down in the soil on this excavation. And they're 2 meter by 2 meter units, so they're really big. Ooh. Yeah, they're really huge. And we're doing 5 centimeter levels. So if you're trying to dig a 5 centimeter level with a flat, razor sharp flat shovel in this clay that just peels back like cheese, it looks like you're cutting cheese. Yeah. And I'll skip ahead real quick, but to the first time he had me dig a level, we're measuring it in the end, and I'm like, yeah, it looks pretty good. And it's 10 centimeters in one corner, 2 centimeters in the other corner. It was horrific. Trying to judge a 5 centimeter level across 2 meters is hard. Yeah. But anyway, when I first got assigned to him, it was right at the beginning of the day. So he started digging first, and he generated, 8 buckets worth of dirt while we were standing there talking. And I was just standing there because I had nothing to do because I was his screener. And but we're talking and it's cool. I'm new and he's being the, Papa Bear kind of person and trying to guide me through different things. And, my job was to go screen. I'd never screened a freaking material in my life like that. In Africa, there were 4 of us sitting around a screen that the African natives would bring us dirt and toss it in the screen, and we would just sift through it looking for stuff that we were looking for.
Yeah.
I'm sure we missed things too because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. So anyway, I had to wait until somebody else went to the back dirt pile so I could see how they lifted up the standing shaker screen and use it. Like, I had no idea, right? I had no idea. So this leads into what ended up becoming sort of a side hustle for me. My first thought from that was, why isn't there a resource I can find that shows me something as simple like screening?
Yeah.
Why isn't there a resource like that? So I started writing these things down, and I think within my first year of being an archaeologist, a paid archaeologist, I had sent a proposal to the Rough Guide editors, and I said there needs to be a rough guide to CRM archaeology, and here's my sample outline, here's a sample chapter, here's all these things. I mean, realistically, looking back on it, I had no business writing that book. Like, I had an undergrad degree, no experience in archaeology, and really had zero business, no experience writing. I know, and it's good on them for rejecting my proposal.
Oh. Yeah,
they totally rejected it. They were like, well, they didn't reject it because they didn't like my stuff, or at least they didn't say that. They rejected it because they thought the idea was the audience would be too small. It wasn't big enough for them. Yeah. And I was like, you have a rough guide to opera. How many people buy that book? Anyway.
You'd probably be surprised.
I feel like people that go to opera, though, like, already know all about it.
Maybe.
Like, who's learning on the rough guide to opera? You know what I mean? Ooh. That whole, like, quote, class of people are probably not buying rough guides.
People who are trying to break into the class of people.
I guess, but I feel like, I don't know. Either way, it seemed weird to me, but I'm glad they did it. So, but anyway, that idea never went away in my head. And years later, after I think it was after I had my master's degree, I started my blog. Yeah. Which is basically what that was. And I started the Shovel Bum's Guide series on my blog. Yeah. Which is basically taking those old ideas and rehashing them. And that turned into my book. Yeah. And that book became my first real side hustle in CRM because I actually made some money off of that. I think to date I've made like $500 off that book.
Oh, that's wow. It. Oh my God. That's more zeros than I thought.
I know. Well, I just got my last royalty check from what's now, who the hell bought them? Who bought Left Coast Press? Who's my new publisher?
Oh, I thought you meant who literally bought it.
No. Well, yeah. Well, they did actually buy it.
No, but I meant who's buying the books.
Oh, who's buying the books? I don't know who's buying the books. Anyway, whatever the name is, they're big. I can't remember the name, but they bought Left Coast Press, and they just sent me another like an $80 royalty check because they're not promoting it anymore. The only one promoting it is me. So, but then it's 3 years old now too. So, anyway, that turned into, I eventually started the Archaeology Podcast Network, which is now starting to become another side hustle for me. Now, side hustle doesn't have to be something you make millions of dollars on, right?
Or any money.
Any money at all. The APN technically brings in like a few $100s a month, but it all goes right back out. Oh. Yeah, like none of it stays in. There's zero profit, I mean, especially when you consider I'm pretty much doing this full time. The APN's actually in the hole probably $2,000 to $3,000 a month if you want to actually factor that in. So anyway, that's my kind of side hustle. I've got a bunch of other things going on that I'm hoping will monetize at some point. Yeah. Because I think these are my strengths and these are what I should do. So we're going to take a break real quick, and when we come back, we'll talk about Richie's side hustle, and we'll delve deep into that. Back in a second.
This network is supported by our listeners. You can become a supporting member by going to arcpodnet.com/members and signing up. As a supporting member, you have access to high-quality downloads of each show and a discount at our future online store and access to show hosts on a members-only Slack team. For professional members, we'll have training shows and other special content offered throughout the year. Once again, go to arcpodnet.com/members to support the network and get some great extras and swag in the process. That's arcpodnet.com/members.
All right, welcome back to the show, and this is the podcast, Sierra Mark Podcast, episode number 128, and we're talking about the side hustle, and we spent the first segment talking about kind of what a side hustle is to both Richie and I, and I ended the segment talking about kind of how I'm planning on constantly doing my side hustle. Never really brings in a ton of money, but it just keeps you engaged and keeps you going. So, Richie, what was your first side hustle?
Well, I guess it starts with my very first project ever. Because I did not know anything And for that, but it didn't really matter since it was like an hour away from my apartment. And, so I just went there, figured out what I needed and came back. Mm-hmm. But for the Ruby, we were working, I was going to go to Nevada and I was not going to be able to come back because, unlike a normal CRM job, there were no days off at all. So basically you worked until it was done, which meant that I had to bring everything with me, everything. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I did was I hopped on Google and was trying to find sites or something, anything on cultural resource management, archaeology. Mm-hmm. And, surprisingly, there's nothing about it. I found like Accra and stuff like that, but it's like, useless. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say that because, people might be listening, but I meant for what I needed.
For what you needed, it is useless. Yeah.
Like I didn't tell you anything about any, compasses or boots or anything.
Yeah.
And so that's when it first popped in my mind that you needed something like that. And I was also living in Hollywood at the time, so I was also super interested in movies. Mm-hmm. So that's when the first idea popped in my mind about starting to do a YouTube channel, mm-hmm. which is what became my original side hustle. Mm-hmm. And then every winter after I started my YouTube channel, Happy Archaeology Fun Time, I just taught myself a new skill. So, I taught myself how to use a real film editor, not just iMovie. Is it iMovie?
iMovie's for Mac, yeah.
Yeah, because I was all Mac at that time.
Yeah.
And then I taught myself graphic design. Mm-hmm. Although I didn't realize the graphic design, I actually taught myself Photoshop. But I was using it for graphic design because I didn't know that there was actually a specific program for that.
Right.
And all that stuff. So that was my original side hustle.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, obviously, especially these days, YouTube's changed a lot of their policies. You really need either a ton of subscribers or massive amounts of hits to even start monetizing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, to even turn that on. It used to be you could just turn it on. And then you get what you get. But now I think, isn't it like 10,000 subscribers or something before you can turn it on for a new page?
Ha.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I predate that.
Yeah, exactly. If you're grandfathered in, you're fine.
I just haven't gotten any money yet because they don't pay out until you reach a certain amount.
Yes, that is an issue. But the thing is, even if that side hustle is not making in a lot of money right now, you've got a pretty good body of content up there.
Yeah.
And you never know. That's the thing with putting content online.
Yeah.
Something could go years without anybody really paying attention to it. And then all of a sudden everybody says, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then everybody looks at it, so you never know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you look at, Archaeosoup Productions.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, he's got hundreds of thousands of views on some of his videos.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, they're not like the highest quality videos.
No.
You know what I mean? It's just content. He's got a searchable content and a lot of it, and he's consistent.
And although you can totally tell he's not very much of a field archaeologist.
Not anymore. I mean, this is like his full-time gig now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so anyway, it can be a thing. And I think as we start talking about Richie's next side hustle, one thing to take away from this is probably don't do something unless you're really passionate about it, because it may take a while for it to actually make you any money. If you go into it thinking, I'm just going to make a few extra bucks doing this, if it's like a temporary job or something, that's one thing, but if it's something that you want to do that's kind of fun that might also make you some money, then just look at it that way. I mean, do what you got to do to pay your bills, but your side hustle may not make you a lot of money really early on. I mean, the APN's been going for 3 years and it's not paying my bills yet. But that's typical of podcasting. There's a lot of podcasters out there that will tell you, the ones that are making money, they'll tell you they didn't make a dime for the first 5, almost 10 years.
Really?
Because it took them a while to learn how to do it.
Interesting.
So anyway, what are you doing now?
Oh, well, now I am taking a digital marketing course, but I guess I should go into a little preamble about that, because I live near the Collective, and when I first moved to Reno, I first got that apartment, it was incredibly cheap, and now suddenly Reno's on the upswing, and rent is going up, and I had been working at the bookstore, which, was fine, especially since they, I could take off as much time as I wanted to do stuff, but last year, there just wasn't any work.
Yeah.
So I literally had to subsist on the bookstore salary, which was not working.
Right.
At all. So I needed to figure something else out. And that's when Chris suggested, hey, I know this dude named Seth. You should take his course.
Yeah.
Yes. And, because it aligns with, the skills you've already learned. And I did not realize that it did at the time because, originally I just signed up for it. Mm-hmm. I actually spent the first week trying to figure out if it was a scam.
Yeah, I'll be honest. You can find Seth's course, and he's a friend. He's here at the Reno Collective. Actually, he's kind of living abroad right now because he can.
Yeah.
So yeah, Seth is a member of the Reno Collective, or at least was before he moved abroad. And we just got to talking, and I'll be honest, his website, I think it's indemandcareer.com, right?
It is.
And it looks on first glance, it actually does kind of look like it could be a scam.
Yeah.
Like you don't really just get, I don't know why that is, why that feeling I have is like that. I mean, it's clearly not. I mean, he makes a ton of money with people just attending his course. They just pay to have his course and then the access to the materials behind the paywall. And, but there is, did you watch the free course first?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And what value do you think Seth provided in that? Like, what value did you get out of that that made you? Well, I guess what I'm saying is, could you have gone on and done things possibly just like not as well with just the free course? Or did you really need to take the paid one?
I guess it depends on how familiar you were with the internet. But you could have at least bluffed your way into a job. You might not necessarily have been able to do the job, but you could bluff your way into it, just like the way people do with CRM archaeology sometimes.
All the time. Yeah, the cardinal rule is say yes and then figure it out later. Yeah,
it's like, I know how to use the Trimble.
Right. But like you're saying, Richie, if you really want to do it right, you should take the goddamn course.
Yeah.
Take the course, get into it, and do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, because not only that, but you're gonna go work for somebody, whether you're freelancing or doing whatever, with this digital marketing thing, and it's gonna be your reputation on the line.
Yeah.
And just like any other field, that's probably a pretty small field, and if they just keep. If somebody's saying, hey, I need a digital marketer, they'd be like, well, don't use, so-and-so because they screwed me last time.
Yeah.
So it's something you want to do right. And it's pretty public for the company too, doing digital marketing. You're doing stuff that's making them money.
True.
And it's probably, in some cases, it could be the only thing that's making that company money is their digital efforts because that's the kind of company they are.
Yeah.
And if you're in charge of that, you're in charge of crafting that, you want to do a good job.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, and not to just launch into it, but when I was still trying to figure out if it was a scam or not, it suddenly started to fall into place how it actually dovetailed into my side hustle. I'm not sure if you knew that when you recommended it to me.
Probably not. No. So explain that a little bit.
Well, it's all about creating a website and like promoting something. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I want to promote my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And so, but originally I was actually coming up with notes for the APN. Yeah. So if you're noticing changes on the website, that's all because I was making notes as I was going along with the course.
Nice.
Because it's like all sorts of basic things. Yeah. Like, now I can actually look at a website like the bookstore I used to work at and think, man, that is a terrible website. Which is super ironic because actually a lot of people found the bookstore. And I don't know sure if I should mention the name, but, especially since I just slandered their website. But, I would take the call at the bookstore and people are like, yeah, I found you through your website. But they could find a lot more people if the website was organized properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so he takes you through how to organize the website, how to come up with ads, what you should be writing about, all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of other things we can get to in a second.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go through the course really, but I just want to talk about like it's good to talk about the value in the course, things like that. And again, Seth, and indemandcareer.com is not paying us to say these things. I just think I know. I just think that we talk about side hustles all the time, but we never actually say what that means, and talk to people that are doing it, which is why when Richie and I were talking just the other day, I was like, man, we should do a show about this, just get your experiences with it. So.
Oh, and he was also on one of our, You Call This Archaeology podcast, wasn't he?
Yeah, Seth was. Yeah. Cause he happened to be in the room. So he was in the building. So we called him over and said, here, talk about this. So it was one of the earlier episodes. I know that. Yeah.
We're only up to 23.
Yeah. It was one of the first ones we did. Yeah. So anyway, so just go back to the course. What kind of time investment? Have you gone through all the videos of the initial part of the course?
Yeah, all of it.
And what kind of time investment do you think that was?
Well, it depends. Because, I worked 10-hour days with was it like an hour drive in between. So it's not a lot of time. Yeah. But basically, you can get through it in like a weekend's worth of evenings if you work a regular 9 to 5, 8-hour schedule. Mm-hmm.
How many, do you remember about how many hours of videos there actually are?
Oh my God. Unfortunately, no, because it's like a bazillion of them. Yeah. Like you got like playlist.
Right. So it's a bunch of like shorter ones and longer ones and different things. Yeah. Now the video format, I know with YouTube now you can speed up videos. Yeah. He doesn't use YouTube for those videos though. He uses something else.
Yeah, but you can still speed it up.
You can still speed them up. Okay. Yeah. So if you have the ability, like I listen to podcasts at 2x, but I wasn't able to always do that. You know, it takes a little bit of training in your brain to do that. Yeah. So if you can do that, you can actually watch the videos a little quicker if you want to get through them faster. So.
And that's the way I'm doing it the second time around.
Yeah, exactly. And now we talked about this last night. Why are you going through it a second time around? What did you do the first time?
Well, the first time I just wanted to watch it to get the basics down, but now I'm actually making notes and actually doing the exercises he suggests. Mm-hmm.
That's good advice for any video-based education, I think, is if it's not a one and done, which I don't know of any video stuff that is, like you can usually just rewatch them, right? And that's another thing. We'll talk about the pricing model for what Seth's course is, I think, because it's all on his website anyway. So we'll talk about what you're paying for and how much you paid to get access to this. But basically, you have access to the videos as long as you're paying. Yeah. So watch through all the videos because you might not know, and when you first get to it, it might be a fresh subject to you. Depending on what you're doing, whether it's this course or something else, you may not know anything about it, so you won't even know what to take notes on. Yeah. It's like people writing frantically in a college course or something like that. It's like, what? Are you ever actually going to go look through those notes? You're literally writing down everything they're saying. Exactly. That's not important. You know, if I could, I used to, when I was in grad school, I found there was a program, I think it was actually Microsoft Word did this on my Mac, like Word for Mac. It allowed me to go into notebook mode, and I make sure I sat near the front of the class because I didn't have a microphone other than the microphone on the computer, and I would just hit record and take notes. Yeah. Yeah. So I would write down some notes as I was going along. Yeah. And those would be timestamped to the recording. Yeah. But I would go back later on and actually listen to the recording and see if there's anything I missed and didn't take in. Because sometimes you're taking a note on something you thought was important when you're kind of only half paying attention while you're taking that note to the thing that was really important that was just said. Yeah. You know, so it's good advice to listen to the whole entire course first. That way you can go back through it or even listen to sections of it, you know, and then go back and listen to the section and take notes on it.
And it's so much easier these days with phones and everything that can like record.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless you like have like 8 gigabytes of memory.
Right. Which used to be a lot, but it's not so much anymore. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about the course. So you're like, was there a different initial cost and then there's a monthly cost, or is it the same cost?
No, it's just $95 a month.
$95 a month. Now that might sound expensive to some serum archaeologists, but it does. But what are you getting for that?
Let's see. You're getting the course, and then there's also like personal consultation with Seth. Yeah. Well, personal-ish consultation. Yeah. Because you post questions on a forum, and then he will get back to you. Okay. Or alternatively, you can make your website and submit it, and he will critique it.
Oh, nice.
Almost like the way you do consultation for podcasting.
Right, right.
So pretty much almost the same idea.
Nice, nice. It's good to have somebody just to bounce ideas off of. Yeah. You know, I took that audio engineering course, the podcast engineering school. Yeah. And now I'm forever part of a Slack team of former people that took that course and the course instructor. So anytime we can go in there and just bounce ideas off each other and say, hey, check this out.
Yeah. He does the same thing.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Now with Seth's course, though, you have access. You only have access to all the stuff as long as you're paying monthly, right? Yeah. Yeah. So the idea, I've talked to Seth about this, the idea is once you get a job and you don't need the forum and the access to the courses anymore, you stop paying.
Yeah. Because you're just learning in real time.
Right. Exactly. Which totally makes sense. And I wish we had something like this for archaeology because I feel like people will get jobs way quicker. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money to spend $100 a month on something. Yeah. But if you only do it once and it gets you a job in a few weeks versus a job in a few months because you had experts and people who were there to bounce your ideas off of and to say, hey, I turned this resume into a job and they never called me back. What's wrong with it? You know, we can look at it and say, oh, well, the only thing you have on here is McDonald's burger flipper technician. Let's get some other shit on your resume.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call you back either.
Yeah, and more importantly, how many people spend money to go back to school for GIS or something?
Right.
Or learning to code Python so that they can, go do GIS more specifically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff like that. And how much does that cost?
Right. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But like anything, you got to look at the cost benefit. I personally think that if you want to help pay your bills and maybe learn a new skill that's going to be beneficial way later on and outside of archaeology.
Yeah.
A lot of people think the answer to that question is GIS. And GIS is applicable outside of archaeology, of course. It's used everywhere.
Yeah.
However, there's not a lot of GIS positions out there.
No.
There just isn't.
No.
Right. So it's really difficult, and it's really expensive to do like an online certificate or anything else. I mean, it's not cheap.
Yeah, I actually tried it.
Yeah, I mean, you can do this course for $100 a month.
Yeah,
you're probably only going to pay for a few months, quite frankly. Then you're going to get what you're going to get out of that course.
And the GIS course I signed up for, guess how much it was for? I forget it was a year or 2 years, but guess how much it cost for the whole thing?
How much?
$6,000.
Oh my god!
And none of that is you can't do any student loans for it.
And there's no guarantee you'll even get work after that.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the most successful GIS person we know here in town.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a GIS degree.
Yeah. Well, he came up another way.
Yeah. And more importantly, he just taught himself.
He was a self-starter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And
every other company I know who has a GIS specialist, that person has been there for 20 million years, and you're never going to get them out of that job unless you murder them.
Right. Yeah. And our friend who taught himself and improved his own situation, he's now married. They're buying a house. They bought a house.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing the things that everybody say they want to, and he crafted that future for himself.
Yeah.
And
he's not in a massive amount of debt.
He is now. He bought a house, but
but
no student loan debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. I love it. We're just about at the end of this section. This segment. So we'll come back with segment 3 with, maybe some more ideas for checking this out. In the meantime, check out arcpodnet.com/affiliates for the link to this digital marketing course.
And affiliate singular.
Is it affiliate singular?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't remember what I did. So, try one of those. And the only reason I'm telling you this is because we actually set up an affiliate relationship with Seth's course. So the APN will get an ever so tiny kickback. Since it's $95 a month.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet the kickback's probably like $2. I mean, I don't even know what it is.
Oh, really? I was going to say 50 cents, but whatever.
Oh, well, hey, I guess I'd be happy with $2 then. But if you're interested in this, you click on the link. It's not going to charge you, of course. It will take you to the website, and then you can watch the free videos and stuff. Yeah. And then if you actually end up subscribing, if you actually end up subscribing to it and paying for it, as long as you went through that link that we sent you, then we'll get a little bit of recognition on that. So.
And you don't have to do it right then. I assume that there's cookies in the code so that if you go back eventually.
Right. Hopefully. Yeah. I'm actually not sure, but it's a pretty sophisticated system. So yeah, hopefully. So, all right. Well, we're going to finish the segment out, and we'll be back shortly. Hey, podcast listeners. Do you find yourself wondering what the latest tablet or smartphone could do for your business? Wonder what GPS to pair with your device? Just trying to figure out how to go digital in the field without breaking the bank and or making a bad investment? Or did you find a technology company to work with but just aren't sure the questions you need to ask during the initial conversation? Well, you're not alone. There are literally thousands of tech combinations out there, and it can be really tough finding the right one for your business and your workflow. My name is Chris Webster, and I've been working in CRM since 2005, and I've been a tech enthusiast my entire life. I spend my time trying to figure out how to make archaeology more efficient both technologically and financially. No one is going to give you a big pile of money to do whatever you want with, so you have to make the most of what you have. The right gear can mean the difference between zero margins on that next project and an employee benefits package. That's where DigTech Concierge comes in. Let us be your technology guru. Whether you have just a few questions or want us on retainer 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, we're here to help. With years of experience, tens of thousands of acres of survey done completely digitally, and many, many people trained, DigTech is your tech BFF, just waiting to guide you through this process now and through the inevitable changes to come. Should you hold on to those tablets or upgrade? What about the new operating system? Will it crash your apps, or can you go ahead and do it? We know the answers and can guide you to a profitable year. Go to www.digtech-llc.com/tech-concierge to book a consultation or book us for the year. The yearly retainer includes unlimited calls and support and company training on software and gear. That's digtech-llc.com/tech-concierge. and Concierge is CONCIERGE. To get going and go digital today. Call us before you make any decisions. We've been there before. All right, we're back for episode 128, the final segment of the Sierra Mark podcast for this episode. And we're talking about the side hustle. And we're going to get probably a little bit more esoteric on our discussion for this third segment. But, we want to talk about, I guess, basically looking at education and things like that. Because like we mentioned, some people might think their side hustle is a GIS certificate, and they might turn that into a front hustle.
Or they think it's going to be a master's degree or some type of grad degree.
It's really the grass is greener on the other side syndrome.
Yeah.
We always think, well, shit, I'm only getting paid $15 an hour, and I'm a field tech, and people on the East Coast might be going, $15 an hour? That's a hell of a lot of money.
I'm rich now.
I know, right? But I'm only getting paid X dollars an hour, whatever the average is for your area. And the only way that I can improve myself is to go get a master's degree.
And go into a lot of debt.
Yeah. So you're going to go get your master's degree. You're going to go $30,000 to $40,000 into debt.
Yeah.
And you're going to get $1 pay raise. Because of that.
And, to bring it back around, like I was saying, I did work in a local bookstore in town. Mm-hmm. And one of my first trainers, the owner of the bookstore just sits me down and says, hey, this person has a PhD.
Yeah.
And they're going to teach you how to clean books. And I'm not even joking. Like, literally, that was like, you have a PhD and you're like here earning like 8, 9, 10, however much money we are paid there an hour. And the tragic thing is that wasn't the first person I met there with a master's degree.
Yeah.
I actually remember running into someone there who I used to drink with because, the anthropology grad students at, the local university here in Reno, UNR, would have like a drinking Thursday at a local bar/burger place. And I'm like, hey, I know you. Yeah, so I met someone who got their master's degree in anthropology and was thinking, hey, I'm going to be a project manager and earn $1 bazillion.
Nice.
And they were working at the same bookstore I was, earning the same amount of money, even
right.
And they weren't even ever in the field. Mostly because of health. Like they, when they were actually getting their grad degree, they actually had a seizure in the field and realized that they were not going to ever be like permanent field people ever.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And now she actually works in another bookstore.
Okay.
She had to move.
Yeah.
Because, her boyfriend got a job on the East Coast.
Gotcha.
But now she works in a much higher class bookstore. And the crazy part is, she wasn't even the first person I met at the bookstore. She wasn't the only person I met at the bookstore who was a grad student in anthropology at UNR.
Oh, yeah.
Like Saturday, I was like, we have a bookstore group. We have a bookstore game group.
Right.
At a local bar/game sort of place. And there's like another dude there who also has a master's degree from UNR in anthropology. Mm-hmm. And he's also working at the bookstore.
Nice.
And we also have a renowned scholar in, I think she's a biologist or a botanist. Her specialty is ferns, and she went and got her PhD, and she also works at the bookstore. So,
all right, then.
Yeah, so if you think that getting a grad degree is going to equal anything to anyone, then you might possibly be mistaken.
Now let's back up a second. Let's be fair to people, because I do want to say, if you could manage to get either an advanced degree over your undergrad or a certificate or something like that, and not pay for it,
yes.
If you could manage to do that, through grants or whatever program, like a lot of PhD programs, I mean, it's grant funded.
Yeah.
So you actually won't walk away from it with student loans. That's not to say it's the same for everyone, but sometimes that's the case. And including some master's degree programs, if you do the longer version of the master's degree, you might be able to get away with less student loans then too.
Yeah.
So if you're really, because I don't want to dissuade people from pursuing their passions about a particular topic.
Oh, that's true.
If you're really excited about, the one piece of pottery that anybody's ever found in Nevada. If you're really excited about that, then go to school and study it.
Yeah.
But you just have to manage your expectations and understand that might not be the be all end all to your career.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand that in archaeology, sometimes, and in fact, most times, if you're passionate about something and you go beyond, say, the undergraduate level, you're going to have to probably create your own career. A lot of people in their positions, I know somebody who's a faunal expert, and she had to look around and basically create her own job because people didn't know that they needed what she was selling, so. And it's the same with me, really, with my side hustle. Nobody's going to pay me to podcast, but I think I think I have a skill in doing this, so I'm just creating the position for myself. Yeah. And hoping it all works for the best.
And that's what I'm doing through this course.
Exactly.
But I feel like so many people get their grad degree and expect the job to fall into their lap, because we were talking about this last night. Like people just expect things to here, now you got this grad degree, here, have this $100,000 job. Yeah. It does not work like that. So if you're getting a grad, if you're a field tech and you're thinking, I'm going to get my master's degree and suddenly I'm going to be earning $100,000 a year, you are wrong.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Oh, man, I feel like I need another cup of coffee.
So you should only do it if it's you really are passionate about it. Because a lot of the people I met at the bookstore with advanced degrees, they didn't really care about what they got their degree in.
Well, that goes into a whole other discussion about our educational system and people thinking they need X degree to do whatever. People just go into college after high school with an undeclared major. I don't think that should be allowed. Yeah. You should never go in undeclared. And now the college will say, well, go in undeclared and then take a bunch of courses and figure out what you want to do with yourself. Yeah. I'm not going to do that at $10,000 a year. See? I mean, why I need to figure out what I want to do with myself before I go to your college, you know? I mean, I went into the Navy right out of high school and then went into flight school. And then as I realized through my career, I ended up going to college, beyond that flight school, which was a college as well, but different. And then, converted that into anthropology, as you do.
And you probably didn't even know about anthropology at high school.
Not really. I mean, my extent of knowledge regarding anthropology was Indiana Jones. Yeah. Because I was like 10 when the first movie came out. Yeah. So, that was it. But that being said, Indiana Jones had a huge impact on me. When I was younger and somebody asked me what I want to do, it was either archaeologist, airline pilot, or astronaut. So while I'm an archaeologist now, I've never actually been an airline pilot, but I do have my pilot's license, so I count that as a win. Yeah. Now I just need to be an astronaut, and I'll count all three as goals.
Oh my God! Well, thank you, Elon Musk. In 10 years,
I'm just going to sneak into the trunk of his Model 3 that's in the nose of that rocket.
Oh, did you hear they halved the production number?
I did. Yeah, they can't meet their quotas, but they're having supply issues too. So anyway, we don't want to talk about that. That's we'll talk about that on You Call This Archaeology on Wednesday. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess the thing I want to say regarding we're kind of moving away from a side hustle just a little bit, but I honestly don't think so, because I think your side hustle could just be something you're working on in the background that could end up becoming your main gig, or might end up just making you a little bit extra money, right? But one of the things you can do if you really do want to improve yourself, no matter what field you're in, whether you're an archaeologist, whether you're a principal investigator or a field technician, if you want another job, you find somebody that's already doing that. If it exists, if it doesn't exist, you might have to actually create your job. But if it exists, let's say the easiest example is I'm a field technician and I want to be project manager at this company. Right. That's what I want to do. Yeah. You talk to the project managers of that company and you say, what are your qualifications? What do you have? What did it take to get where you are today? Yeah. Don't be shy and ask them that. And if they're not willing to tell you that, then go to the human resources department and say, the ones who do the hiring, and say, what does it take to become a project manager at this company? If they say it's XXX, then you do those things.
Although make sure your human resources department is competent, because I know you and I worked at a company where the human resources department was basically just guessing, and they would have just told you anything.
Yeah. And you don't want to have to wait for the HR department rep to fly up here from their home office to talk to you either. So, anyway, another little inside joke. But so I guess the point is, I learned this actually from my division chief when I was in the Navy. He told me a lot of things, and he always said, look at where you want to be, and that will determine your path. Yeah. Figure out how to get to a certain point. If you just say, if I do this thing and this thing and this thing, then maybe I'll get this. Yeah. It never works out.
Well, because, at some companies, the way you get to be project manager is that you bring in a certain amount of business, and that takes completely different skills than what you would get from a master's degree in archaeology.
Oh, yeah.
Because, basically you're just selling the company and you're selling your work.
Yeah, you might actually have to go get like an MBA or something like that.
Yeah.
If you want to be competitive at a certain business.
And you have to learn how to talk to people because so many people you meet at these conferences are just hiding.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the biggest reasons I went and got my master's degree.
Yeah.
And why my master's degree is in, the technical title was Archaeological Resource Management.
Yeah.
But it's basically a CRM master's degree.
Yeah.
The reason I did that is because I did exactly what my division chief from the Navy told me to do. I was working on the East Coast mostly at the time. I'd never worked on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And on the East Coast, my eyes were rocketed wide open when I got a project manager for the company we were working for. She went from high school to an undergrad degree to her master's degree to my boss. That was her progression, right? She was like, I was on a project with her. She'd literally never been in the field in a professional circumstance. She's been on like academic stuff throughout her career, of course. But she didn't know how to use a compass, which is a common thing that we say. And I'm not going to fault anybody for that. If you come out, you're not going to come out of any program knowing everything. But as long as you are admitting to that, but she would admit to it. As long as you're admitting, I mean, she'd cross my transect doing shovel tests like every single time. Like 4 tests into it, she's on my right side rather than my left side. I'm going through the woods. I'm like, what are you doing? But anyway, just own up to what you don't know. But anyway, the whole point is, that was when I really realized, and I'd only had maybe a year or two in the field at this point. I think 2 years in the field. And it made me realize, shit, I am never going to get to that point unless I get a master's degree. If I'm going to stay in the Southeast, I need a master's degree, and then I will be a project manager. That's how it works. I mean, sure, the job needs to exist, but for you to even be considered for that job, you needed a master's degree. And that was like, that's the minimum right there. So, of course, I went and got my master's degree, and I didn't want to waste any time. Like, I'm passionate about a few things, but I wasn't passionate about enough things to be like, I'm going to spend 3 or 4 years studying this one topic and then never study it again, just so I can get a project manager job and make an extra $2 an hour, right? So that's why I found the shortest, most relevant degree I could find from a reputable university. So I went to the University of Georgia. It was a brand new program, which actually doesn't exist anymore. Well, they didn't have the professors to teach it. So they just, it wasn't that it wasn't successful. I mean, the people that I was with in that program are all doing great things. So it's, they're all doing good things and they got a lot of good stuff out of that. And the degree was beneficial. It's just, they didn't have the people to administer it. Anyway. So it was, I got that degree. I got right back out and I got right to work. And my problem is I didn't stay in the Southeast. Like we literally drove a U-Haul to graduation.
Wow.
Yeah. No shit. Like that day I went to graduation. Actually, I'm not sure the U-Haul was I think we had our car, but we had a trailer that we just drove back to the apartment, drove the car up on the trailer from graduation, strapped it down and headed to, New Mexico.
But that's a very classic CRM story.
I know, right? So my problem is I looked at the qualifications I needed to get the job I wanted in a certain region. And then I moved out of that region. So I came to Nevada on a project right after that, actually right here in the Great Basin.
And you only need 18 months.
Well, and I had 0 experience in Nevada, and I'm like, why can't I be a project manager? And they're like, well, you're not qualified. And it's like, yeah, but I have a master's degree. And they're like, get the hell out of my face. So if you're sitting here in Nevada and you go, okay, you, Mr. Project Manager, what do I need to be a project manager in this state? It's a very different set of qualifications. Often a master's degree is beneficial if all other things are being equal. You know, it's because a higher education degree is always looked upon for higher positions as something, but that's a perception. That's what people say. But legally, technically, you just need 18 months of experience in a region, in Great Basin. And we can get into the weeds on that, but we're not going to. But the BLM will permit you as a PI. And then I just found out, not too long ago that actually in Utah, not too long ago, they changed all their standards and there's no permitting levels that are different besides PI. Everyone that's permitted there is permitted at the PI level.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Well, I don't know if they changed the requirements, though. I don't know if that means a field techs are just unpermitted or if that means everybody's a PI.
Ooh,
I don't really know.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't really know. So, because I'm not permitted in Utah.
Yeah.
So,
but to bring it back to what you need, to be a project manager and stuff in certain regions, certain companies don't measure it according to education level. They measure it according to how many clients you bring in and the how much the contracts you bring in are worth.
Right.
And those are completely different. That's not anything you're going to learn in any archaeology master's degree program.
No. Well, that's becoming less true. There are some programs like the one we actually interviewed them. It's the program up at in Vancouver, BC.
Oh yeah.
Remember the name of that school?
No.
Simon Fraser.
Oh, I should
Simon
remember.
Fraser University. They have a pretty good program with some courses that were designed by, actually, it's a CRM focused master's program.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked to see what their curriculum is this year, but they have some really great programs that were actually designed by some CRM professionals here in the United States.
Ooh.
And they are designed to teach you things like project management, budgeting, stuff like that. So that's another thing. If you think that if you've analyzed your field and you said, listen, I want to stay in this region or I want to move to this other region, but I want to stay in this region, here are the requirements. And one of those requirements is, in fact, a master's degree. Yeah. Now you have even more choices to make. So now you're like, okay, where am I going to get my master's degree? Do I want to spend $40,000 and study underwater basket weaving and then never look at it again? Sure, I might make some great strides in the field of underwater basket weaving, but I'm going to go to work as a CRM archaeologist, right? So you decide how much money and time you have and how much time you want to spend out of the field and away from, what your career is, and do what you got to do. Or you can choose a different university, like Adams State University has an online degree that's becoming more and more reputable.
That was like one of the first ones, right, that you interviewed?
Yeah, we interviewed them a long time ago. Yeah. So, but they're becoming way more reputable and well known. I know, Chad, at least a handful of people that are getting degrees from them remotely.
Really?
I think they may still have a requirement where you have to show up a couple times on campus, and I think they're in like Denver or something like that.
Oh, it's not that bad, at least from here.
Yeah, I can't remember where they're at. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, you got to show up to like defend your thesis or something. And again, don't quote me on any of that because things change all the time and I haven't looked recently. But anyway, that's a program that's more focused on giving you exactly what you need. Yeah. So if your desire is to become a project manager in cultural resource management, get in and get out fast. Yeah. And spend as little money as possible, because all anyone's looking for, if that's a requirement, is that check on the block.
Exactly.
They don't care what you went to school for. Yeah. And most of the time, they don't even care where you went to school.
See?
Some of the old guard, they might, but I don't care. If I have a job where I have to hire somebody with a master's degree, like maybe the government requires it or something like that for a specific job, I'm really just going to look to see if they got a master's degree. Yeah. I'm going to look at their work history for the rest of it.
Or alternatively, if you're going for a government job, it might not even, it might just be looking literally for the letters.
Yeah.
MA.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's just a check in the block for them. Did you get an MA in archaeology or history or anthropology?
What I'm saying is not even a person. It's just like a computer program.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Bill White talks about that a lot, how crafting your resume to be read by automatic reading machines and putting the right keywords in there. Yeah. Resume writing for archaeologists, I think. If you type that into Amazon, you'll find his ebook.
Oh, and more importantly, that's exactly the way that Google AdWords works, which is what I'm teaching myself now.
There you go. Yeah. You're learning that through Seth's course or separate from that?
No, in Seth's course.
Okay, yeah.
But you know what I thought was the most interesting thing, even though it's the least relevant video in the whole series? Mm-hmm. He literally talks an hour and a half about how to search the internet for the jobs you want, how to research companies, how to connect with people through LinkedIn, how to network with people, how to talk to people when you just run into them and stuff.
For sure.
And how to get jobs. And it's like, basically, the reason why it's the least relevant for me is because that's all stuff I had to teach myself on the fly for archaeology. Yeah. And that's, it's just like, to stay in this course, if you're a young person, like you're getting your undergrad and you're like thinking, how do I break in this industry? It's just a lot of footwork. Mm-hmm. And if you're not willing to put in the footwork, you just think, well, I'm just going to see something on Shovel Bombs and just send up my resume and suddenly I'm going to be employed. That's not the way it's going to happen because, of course, as people who have been in the industry know, Shovel Bombs and archaeologyfieldwork.com are basically for rounding out the crew, like that last one or two people. Mm-hmm. And like 90% of the time, they're going to be looking for people that they already know.
Yeah, it might have been a little more beneficial in the early days of the internet when people didn't really, there were no social networks. People didn't really know how to find other people. I mean, they had a phone list that they would call. Yeah. But maybe you lose touch with somebody. Maybe their number changes, whatever. Yeah. They didn't have a cell phone, so you couldn't contact them. They weren't at home. You didn't talk to them. But now with social networks, I mean, you're right. I've actually, while I promote using things like shovel bumps and stuff like that, and things, I've actually never had to use it.
Exactly.
On the jobs I've had, because I knew all the people I hired.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's a statement for our times.
And more importantly, even if they do advertise on shovel bums, if you've been in it long enough, someone will just be like, hey, do you know this person?
Right.
Because they worked on this company, at the same time you did. And they'll be like, that person sucks, or that person's awesome.
Yeah.
So, it's all about networking.
Yeah, I'm still called today on people that have worked for me in the past, even if I wasn't listed as a reference. We contact, employers will just contact their friends and say, hey, have you ever worked with this guy or girl? And what'd you think about him?
Yeah.
Even if you're not a reference, it's a small field. So anyway, we're getting off topic a little bit, and we're going to wrap this up. This is the end of episode 128. If you're doing a side hustle right now and you're making a little extra money or you're learning something, I'm using the hashtag on Facebook and Twitter, Invest in Yourself 2018, so people can focus on that. And leave a comment where you saw this show, anywhere where you saw this show, or on the APN Facebook page at facebook.com/archpodnet. Or Twitter at archpodnet. And you can email me, Chris at archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. And then, of course, as we mentioned, every Wednesday at 3:30 to 4 o'clock-ish on the You Call This Archaeology show, that's Pacific time, on our Facebook page, you can go for some really great information. Go to Richie's YouTube page.
Yeah, happy archaeology fun time.
Excellent. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. That's it for another episode of the CRM Archaeology Podcast. Links to some of the items mentioned on the show are in the show notes for this podcast, which can be found at www.archpodnet.com/CRMArchPodcast. Please comment and share anywhere you see the show. If you'd like us to answer a question on a future episode, email us. Use the contact form on the website, or just email Chris at archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. Support the show and the network at archpodnet.com/members. Get some swag and extra content while you're there. Send us show suggestions and interview suggestions. We want this to be a resource for field technicians everywhere, and we want to know what you want to know about. Thanks to everyone for joining me this week. Thanks also to the listeners for tuning in, and we'll see you in the field. Goodbye.
Farewell.
This show is produced and recorded by the Archaeology Podcast Network, Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle, in Reno, Nevada, at the Reno Collective.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to archpodnet.com/members for more info.